Hey, sports porchers! I'm your hockey Jesus, and I'm back with analysis of the last week of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Well, I've been a little remiss the last few games in getting to the Pittsburgh Penguins, so I thought maybe I would just get with you before today's game. It's Saturday, so standings are starting to come to proof about who's going to be in the playoffs and who isn't going to be in the playoffs. It's been a week now since we've had the new Penguins come on board, and I just thought I'd do a little recap of the week, honestly. So basically, this past week, the Pittsburgh Penguins are on a 3-game win streak. You can see by my sign right here. 3 down, 14 to go. All we got to do is win 14 more games, and we'll get to the ever important 92 points on the season. Of course, I'm joking a little bit because there's no way the Penguins are going to win 17 in a row. But if they do, they'll be in the playoffs. Since they aren't really going to be in the playoffs, the Pittsburgh Penguins made a bunch of trades at the trade deadline. And let me just bring up my little spreadsheet here. So you can see that the Pittsburgh Penguins, basically to kick off the traded Vincent Desjardins, who we only had for a little bit of time, for a 5th-round pick from San Jose. So that was good. Then we picked up Luke Schenn and Thomas Novak from Nashville. We gave them Michael Bunting and a 4th-round pick. That was a little curious at first, but everybody's like, "Hey, we're gonna get rid of Luke Schenn." And sure enough, after trading for a 2nd-round pick, which was an incredible pick, for Anthony Beauvillier, the Penguins finally did trade Luke Schenn, and he went to Winnipeg. I think that's actually a good trade for Winnipeg. Love that team this year. I don't think they're going to be a playoff failure like they have been in the past. We'll see. Hellebuck still got to prove his worth, but so they gave Luke Schenn for a 2nd and a 4th round. Now these are further out in 26 and 27, but still a 2nd and a 4th round basically for Luke Schenn. That's a pretty good payback. And then later you can see that the Pittsburgh Penguins did trade Cody Glass and Jonathan Gruden. Gruden played for the Penguins for a second, but not really somebody who really was of value for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Cody Glass was an experiment that really just didn't fit in. He's often injured. I think that's the other thing with him. But they got a former 1st-round pick from New Jersey in Chase Stillman. He'll be interesting. I think he's a winger. So I'm sorry. Yeah, he's a winger. So, we'll see what happens with him. But I like him. He's one of those guys who are not a pick. He's a prospect. Fits in with Dubas's motive. And so there it was. And we also did get a 3rd-round pick from New Jersey in a few years. Once again, anything past 25, 26, you're talking 27, 28. You're talking a guy that probably isn't going to be on the Penguins for 5 years. And then this was interesting. Towards the end, Toronto made a trade with Philadelphia to get Lawton, and they had to dump some salary. So they had to dump these Connor guys, Connor Dewar and Connor Timmins. These guys are interesting because they're hockey players. They've been playing for Toronto off and on, 25, 26-year-olds. We only had to give up a 5th-round pick for both of them because they basically had to dump salary. And we did have to give a 4th-round pick to Toronto for next year. But this year's pick, that was part of the Carlo trade to Toronto. So really, it was a 4th-round pick that we also got in there. And then, so really, we give up a 5th-round pick, we get a 4th-round pick, and we get both Connors. That's a pretty good deal for the Penguins. That was the Carlo trade. Carlo went from Boston, and they picked him up, and they just couldn't pull him onto pull him onto the roster until they dump some salary. And then just recently, Ryan Shea signed a 1-year contract. Shea's a 28-year-old defenseman. You know what? He's all right. I know my friend the counselor really loves Ryan Shea. Just thinks he's great. I think he can play up and down, which is good. But I don't know. 1-year contract. I'm not going to get excited about a 1-year contract. And then the other day, Avery Hayes signed a 2-year entry level contract. He was an undrafted guy that they just picked up, and he signed an entry level contract. So that's what the Penguins have been up to, and I think it's fits right in the position of where they want to be. You're gonna let go some players who don't fit into the long term, and guys like Cody Glass and Luke Shen, Anthony Beauvillier, Cody Glass, Vincent Desjardins. You're going to get a bunch of picks, and you're going to get a lot of prospects like the Connors and Chase Stillman, and even before that, Finn Harding, who is only a 20-year-old. So he's got some time to develop down in Wilkes-Barre. I did see a statistic the other day about the Wilkes-Barre team. They have scored the most amount of goals in the AHL out of anybody. So that should tell you what Kyle Dubas has been able to do from a prospect standpoint, to bring in some gunners, to bring in more high-powered offense down there. And that's just been great. So from a building perspective, the rebuild is on. This is all part of it. I'm going to take you the whole way through till we finally get back to that magic time when we can start talking about playoffs. I think this is almost as exciting. I really do. I think it's almost as exciting as a playoff game. Nothing's as exciting as a playoff game, but this comes close because you don't know what your makeup of your team's going to be. You get to see new players come up. I really love that about this time of year when the Penguins and other teams also like Buffalo and Chicago, San Jose, they're not in it. They're out of it. So I think that's really what you're going to see. Really, the Pittsburgh Penguins in the last 3 games have been remarkable. They're 3-0 in the last 3 games. They did take Vegas was able to take them to overtime and grab a point. Vegas kind of needs the point, and also St. Louis needed the point too, and they didn't get one. But started last Sunday afternoon when Pittsburgh Penguins played their last game against Marc-Andre Fleury, and honestly, that game against Fleury, Jarry was just incredible. He had a .967 save percentage. Yes, I said Jarry. Tristan Jarry's back up, and he's been incredible since he's been back up. He's played the last 3 games. He's 3-0. His save percentage is .955. Got to be tops in the league over that three game period. Where was this Jarry when we needed him in November? And even when he came back after his stint, this is the Jarry we needed. When you think about what happened to the Pittsburgh Penguins in losing a goalie this year with the way their power play is played, Quinn, by the way, great pickup for the Penguins. He's the guy who's been on the power play this year. Took Gino and Sid, gave them their own power plays, and boy, does that's work. I bet if you go back to last season, I know somebody, namely the Hockey Jesus, who said he would like to see those guys split up, just like I wanted to see Carlson and Letang split up on the power play. I thought that was the best thing to do. I think it's just you need 2 power plays in the league this year, unless you got a really hot one. And I'm happy to see that. But good for Jarry to come back. The other thing, and that was in the Sunday game. In the Tuesday game, he wasn't quite as good. He gave up 2 goals on 37 shots, but they won at home in overtime. The Pens gave up a goal in 6 seconds. Now, if you're in the playoff race, and if that was against, say, somebody like New Jersey or Carolina, somebody you wanted to jump over, that's disappointing. But for Vegas, it was a good comeback. They were coming really hard in the second and third period. Actually, they were coming the whole game. But Jarry held them off. But they scored with 6 seconds left to get that extra point. And Carlson fired in the game-winning overtime goal. Carlson's been I'm going to hold off on Carlson until after I talk about the St. Louis game. Sid had 2 points in the St. Louis game. Raquel scored his 30th goal. They scored 5 goals at home. They haven't done that in a while, and beat St. Louis, a St. Louis team that really needed the points. They are right on the cusp in the West. That was a game that they might look at and be like, we didn't get any points against Pittsburgh with less than 20 games left. That's going to be a game that might haunt them. And honestly, Bennington was on fire, but he looked more like the old Jari in that game. He gave up some soft goals. He did eventually get pulled, and it was too little, too late. St. Louis made a run at the end, but didn't have it going on. So let's talk about Jari. I can't explain it. I don't know how it happens, but sometimes goalies go through periods where they're terrible, and this just happens to be a period where he's playing really well. He's not playing for a contract. He has a contract. So maybe he figured it out. I would love to say that. I don't know that that's true. Maybe it's just because he's playing with a little bit more confidence and knowing that these games don't matter. Could be that. I'm going to go with the optimistic, positive side of things where Jari's figured it out. He can get out of his own head. He can be in the game. Now, he playing like this, don't expect it to last very much longer. And he will have a bad game. But it's good to see Jari back. It's good to know that the Pittsburgh Penguins, with a really good Jari, a great goalie, have what it takes to be a playoff team. They look like a playoff team in the last 3 games. They beat 3 teams in the West that are probably going to be in the playoffs. Minnesota and Vegas definitely are going to be. St. Louis, maybe not. But that's what I'm saying when you talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins playing like a playoff team. That's what happens. They play really well. Gino, I'm sorry if Gaine Malkin. I love you. I love what you've done for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but you are just lost out there. You don't have it anymore. I know you're going to play next year, but boy, I really wish the Pittsburgh Penguins would make an offer to Gino so that this would be his final year in the Pittsburgh uniform. But I think he's going to take the retirement tour next year. I guess. Why not? How much nostalgia did we go through this year? I've got the list here where Gino scored his 500th goal, 1,300th point, Sid with his 1,600th point, 1,100 games for Letang, Sid most faceoffs all time. Sid passes Joe Sakic for 9th all time in points scored. Next guy on the list is who? Our guy Mario Lemieux. That'll be next year. So I think, the nostalgia trip is going to continue in the next year, and I think Gino's going to be on it with his retirement tour. Too bad, because they really need a second line center if they're going to be relevant next year. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about that more next year in the offseason. Karlsson. Let's get to Karlsson. Erik Karlsson, to me, looks like he's playing great. And I am afraid to tell you, Pittsburgh Penguins fans, the reason he's playing great is because this guy loves to play on a losing team. That's right. I said it. Erik Karlsson is a great player on a losing team. He just doesn't have it when it comes to playing in the tough situations. And that's why nobody wanted to pick him up at the trade deadline. Well, that and his $10 million contract. But $10 million contract for a team that wants to make a splash and needs a guy like that, and we would retain maybe $5 million of his salary for the next 2 years, they would take him. But they know, other teams know what we should have known before we got him. Erik Karlsson is a great player on losing teams. You can look it up. It's true. It's damn true. Ooh, Hockey Jesus Sports. Sorry about that. But I just see that that's who Erik Karlsson is. He looks comfortable out there. He's not making boneheaded plays. He's scoring goals. He's coming in at the right time. He's not abandoning his post. I wish this was the Karlsson we had along, but I don't think for a second that we're going to get this Karlsson next year at all. But it is fun to watch. Fun to watch. The guy can score goals when he wants to. And how about our Sidney Crosby? 72 points in 68 games. He only needs 10 more points the remainder of the season to break Wayne Gretzky's consecutive average 1 point per game. I think, by the way, that's a made up statistic. But what the heck? It's Sidney Crosby. It's Wayne Gretzky. If Sid can pass Wayne Gretzky in anything, I'm going to bring it out to you, even if it is a made up statistic. And I'm happy about that, honestly. And Raquel gets his 30th goal against St. Louis, and I think that's great for Rax. He's proven he can play up on the first line. He did not get dealt at the trade deadline. I'm perfectly happy with that. I think that's just fine. I don't think he needs to be out of here. I like to think that he's going to be a guy who can play on the first line or maybe even the second line next year. If the Pens want to make a splash and go get somebody, they got some cap space, so it'll be interesting. I'd rather see some of those younger guns come up next year. Let's take a look at the Pittsburgh Penguins' remaining schedule. So this is who they got to beat. The remaining games today, they play against New Jersey. They got to beat New Jersey. They're going to play on the Isle. Going to play the Islanders, CBJ. That's our Columbus. So right there, those three teams. All three of these teams, New Jersey's going to be in the playoffs. Islanders and Columbus, they're in a fight. They're in a dog fight for that last position. New York's got to win every game. Columbus has got to win 2 out of every 3 games if they want to maintain that A spot. They got to play at Florida and at Tampa Bay. Both of these guys are in the playoffs for sure. So Florida, we'll look at where Florida is in Tampa Bay. They're kind of where they're going to be. We'll get to that in a second. Buffalo out. This Ottawa game is going to be huge for Ottawa. Most likely, they're going to need to be winning that game. We're going to be in Ottawa for that game. I doubt very seriously that's going to be a game we're going to win. And where did I go? Oh, at St. Louis. So St. Louis would get their revenge against us when we play against them in Game 76. At Dallas. So once again, do you think we're going to beat Dallas at Dallas? They've made a big splash at the deadline. And you can see Boston, New Jersey again, Washington at the end of the year. I just don't see it possible for us to roll off even 12 out of those 14 games. Let's look at the standings. So in the East, I think it's really interesting. I've been tracking them since the beginning of the year. I'm not going to go since the beginning of the year. I'm just going to go for the last month. But you can see that Toronto, Florida, Tampa Bay, even in February, they're all in the same boat. Florida did jump over Toronto, and Tampa Bay. But all these three teams, they're trending 86 right now. They got 85, 79 points. Washington's already in. Washington already has 94 points here in the Metro. They're in the playoffs. They're definitely in the playoffs. These other teams are almost for sure in the playoffs. Of their games remaining, there's about 15 games left. Oh, you can see it here. So 17 games left for Toronto, 17 games left for Tampa. They only need to win like 6 of those games, and they're going to win more than that. They're going to play at least 500. For those teams playing 500 would be below where they've been playing all year. So they're not going to fall apart. I doubt that ever is going to happen. And you can see Washington, Carolina, and New Jersey, same as it ever was. I think even if you go back to the beginning of the year, look, it's the same teams. Same 6 teams since the beginning of the year. Nobody's moved. This is what happens. This is why they say you got to be in it by November. Let's look at the wild card. The wild card's a little bit interesting in the East. So Detroit was up here. They went on a 6-game losing streak, and now they're down here. So they were trending 91 points. Now they're only trending 84 points. That's bad for them. That was not a good time to go on a loser streak. But if you recall back here, if you look in January, they made the big leap from the bottom to the top. So that's what happens. Teams just can't sustain it. Eventually, they're going to come back to, almost 500 play in this case. CBJ, surprisingly, those Blue Jackets, they've been right there the whole year. They're 88 here, 88 trending points here, 88 trending points a month ago. I think that's about where they were back here. Well, no, not really. So back at the beginning of the year, they were trending at 78 points. So they made the jump in February, and they've kind of been stuck there, which makes sense. They're a talented team, but they don't have that much talent. But they're in a hunt. You can see right now if the playoffs were today, I would predict that they would be in. And Detroit fell back. So Detroit was trending 91. Like I said, now they're at 84. They're down. Ottawa has just been incredible. They were trending. Let's see where Ottawa was at the beginning of the year. Ottawa at the beginning of the year, they were right there. They were at 91. So they've been pretty consistent since the beginning of the year, trending 91 points, 91 points. Now they're trending 95 points. They went on a bit of a winning streak. They were up and down a little bit, but now they're looking like they're going to be a playoff team. And you can see our Pittsburgh Penguins down here, down low. We'll get to transactions. We'll look at that pick, but right now the Penguins are trending for a fifth or sixth pick. Let's check the West out real quick. So in the West, it's Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado. You can see that Minnesota's fallen off tremendously since January. And actually, if you look from the beginning of the year, Minnesota was trending for 116 points at the beginning of the year. They dropped to 103. And honestly, it had to do with goaltending. Their goaltending started to fail them. Gustafsson, he's losing it a little bit. And Fleury's good, but Fleury's not going to put a team on his back anymore. He just can't do it. So Minnesota dropped from 116 trending points to, if you look way down here, they're at 98 and they dropped to the wild card spot. So that's a bad drop for Minnesota. Might not be a really good playoff team. I don't know if I'd take them. And honestly, that's all because Kirill Kaprizov. If they have Kaprizov in the lineup, they're back up there. Without once again, bad goaltending, lose your number one scorer. That's a bad recipe, and that's what happened to Minnesota. And down here, Edmonton, Vegas, and the Kings, LA Kings, they've been pretty much there all along. Edmonton, I think, was up at the top at one time. No, Edmonton's trending 104. Then they trend 107. Now they're trending 99. So they've been on a bit of a slump. Edmonton has lately, but I think Edmonton, I think they're going to be in the playoffs. But how much of who they're going to end up playing, if they actually drop out of here and have to go down here and play one of the two top teams like Vegas or Winnipeg, oh my, that would just not be good for Edmonton. So I think they want to stay up here. They played against the Kings. The Kings haven't been able to beat Edmonton lately in the playoffs. I would probably predict the Kings to beat Edmonton this year. Let's look at the wild card in the West. The wild card in the West, Colorado, they've just had a resurgence, and they picked up some players at the trade deadline. Colorado was at 92 points trending, which is borderline, right on the borderline. That was at the beginning of the year in January. February, they jumped up to 98, and now Colorado, I think, is trending still around there, 102 points. So yeah, they've really upped their game. And who I would expect that. Colorado is very talented. They did go out and get some players at the deadline. Let's see what happens with that Colorado team. They could be a problem. Still in a hunt in the West. Calgary's got a shot. I really don't think Utah does. I think that team's young, but I think Calgary still has a chance. Vancouver's right there. I think it's going to be up to Vancouver and Calgary when it comes down to it. And that's it. That's my analysis for what's going on in the West and the East for the playoffs coming up. I tell you, I love this time of season. I just absolutely love it. I think hockey is some of the best stuff around. I know you love it. I hope you like my analysis. I hope you like those spreadsheets. I like to talk in terms of final points. You listen to everybody now. They're going to start talking about what it's going to take to get to the playoffs. You know, I've been talking about 92 points since the very beginning. I will stay on that trend. If you like what you hear, smash that subscribe button. Share it out to your friends. I'm your hockey Jesus. I hope you enjoyed this update, and I will see you in the next one. Come on, Pens. 14 more to go. We can do it. See you then.